this is James, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's Oracle Outlook. I don't know about you, but I've been experiencing an interesting challenge during this Mercury retrograde that we're all experiencing at this time. And you know it's got to be something if I'm talking about it, because I hardly ever mention Mercury being in retrograde. But the challenge that I have is around my electrical devices and electronics, so some of you may be able to relate to that. So in particular, my challenge has been with my video camera. So last week I had a dickens of a time getting last week's video done. I had to do several takes, and even with that I noticed a change in the quality in the filming between the takes. And I also had an interesting challenge getting the post-production work done. So I figured I would start by trying to correct the situation by using a new camera. So things may look a little different than they normally do, or they have in the past, I should say, because this is going to become the new normal, right? But I got a new camera this week, and so this is the first time I'm getting to use it. So we are all collectively allowing this experience to kind of test things out. So you all are going to be my guinea pigs, so to speak, for this week. So I hope that is okay with you. So that is one interesting challenge I've had with the Mercury retrograde. So I'm just saying that, so for those of you who may be going through a similar thing with electrical devices and electronics, I'm feeling your pain, right? But moving on, or moving into this week's reading, I am working with one of the decks that I have already worked with. You know, another thing that they say that during Mercury retrograde, you're supposed to be very mindful of embarking on new things. So keeping that in mind, I'm working with a deck that I've already used in this particular regard. So I'm working once again with the Vintage Gypsy Witch Fortune-Telling Oracle Cards by Lynn Boyle. And the reason why I'm working with this deck is because I worked with it a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and it was well received. And so I pay attention to decks that I introduce in this space that receive positive feedback, are well received, that kind of thing. So I was very pleased to see, in terms of the number of views, that particular video was one of my higher ranking viewed videos for this space, so that was nice to see. But in terms of engagement, likes, comments, things like that, it was very well received. So I figured I would bring it back out again. So again, that was the reason for this week's deck selection. So again, we are working with the Vintage Gypsy Witch Fortune-Telling Oracle Cards by Lynn Boyle. And I will make a point to put a link to her Etsy shop in the description box below, so you can either A, learn more about it if this is your first time experiencing the deck, or if you're feeling you're ready to kind of maybe add it to your collection, that you can get all the purchasing information through that link. So now that I've talked about the deck, let's now move into this week's reading. And now I'm taking the deck in hand, and I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the cards. And as I do, I'm focusing on my usual intention and question for these general readings, and that is, what do we need to know for the week ahead? I'm feeling that's good. I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck now. And fan out the cards. And I'm looking for 5 cards in the line that are getting my attention. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm looking at this one as card 5. So I have the 5 cards selected. I'm taking the remainder of the deck up, and I'll put that to one side. So now I have the 5 cards in front of me face down. And as usual, when I work with a line of 5, I always like to look at the middle card first. For me, the middle card always represents the central issue, something we're being asked to focus on for the week going forward, or if the cards are unfolding a particular story, then this would be the heart of the story. So taking a look at the card, we have, okay, a card that has shown up before. So here in the middle of the line, we have the 3 of Spades and Pig. Now when I work with this deck, I like to work with the playing card first. So the 3 of Spades can represent a situation in which there is a problem or a challenge that we are trying to wrap our heads around or trying to understand, because the chief meaning of the three of spades, excuse me, for me is confusion or some sort of misunderstanding. So there could be some sort of situation, like I said, that we're trying to wrap our heads around, we're trying to make sense of, that kind of thing. It could also be a situation possibly that has gotten to a place where it's starting to grow or becoming more intense, because the three can represent a growing situation or a developing situation. So again, it could be growing or it could be developing. Now, three of spades can also represent interference by a third party, so it could just be a matter of that maybe where the source of the misunderstanding is coming from. It could be coming from an external source, somebody who may not be directly involved in the situation but feeling like they need to kind of weigh in or have a say in the matter, something of that nature. It could also be a situation in which it's growing or it's magnifying to some degree, because we need to take a closer look at it, because for me the three of spades can represent examination, so it could be saying to like something that we need to examine, which means take a closer look at, right, that kind of thing. But the three of spades generally for me can represent a situation in which there's some sort of confusion, some sort of misunderstanding, a situation in which we need to take a closer look at it. As I was saying that pause, I was getting the sense that it could also be a situation in which we may need to say something that we haven't said yet, because the three is a number for me of creative self-expression. But I also language it as the voice card, so it's about the voice number, I should say. The three for me is about finding your voice, so it could just be a matter of there may be a situation in which it's being created to some degree because there's something that needs to be said, and you're being given creative license to say what it is that you need to say, or say what needs to be said in the context of this challenge, this problem, this situation. It could be very well the reason why it's in the position or in the state that it's in is because you haven't said anything yet. So I'm seeing that as possibilities for the three of spades. Now, pig. Pig is a symbol that can represent usually abundance or good luck. For me, I tend to look at it as, being lavish or in a state of luxury, because I tend to look at pig as saying the expression about living high on the hog or being in hog heaven. So it's usually about some state of luxury, something abundant, that kind of thing. Challenge with pig. Pig can be also a card in relation to this idea of abundance. On the challenging side, it could represent excess. So spades usually for me can represent something that needs to be cut or eliminated. So it could just be a matter of taking some time and energy to create ways of cutting out or eliminating what may be excessive, right? And that could be in all aspects of our lives. Whatever we feel is excessive, whatever we feel is too much, maybe even too much of a good thing. We may need to find some ways. And then the three of spades in that regard would be the artist card. It's known as the artist card for me. So it could be finding some creative ways to either trim the fat, cut out the excess, those kinds of things. But I'm seeing all of that with the three of spades and pig. So now, as I always say, the surrounding cards will give us more information about that. So let's start with taking a look at the card on the far left. Opening the line up, we have, here we have the Six of Hearts and House. So the Six of Hearts is a card for me that can represent a love affair. So for some people, this could be in the context of a relationship, a romantic relationship. And with that, then the six is a number of responsibility, but it's also about communication. So there may be a situation, it may be part of the, there's no mistake to some of the things that I say, I realize when other cards come up, is that I talked about this idea about finding your voice or needing to say something that maybe hasn't been said yet or that needs to be said. It may be in the context of a relationship for some people, a romantic relationship, because the six is communication. So this could literally be communication in a relationship, right? It could also be communication to heal a relationship if we go with the idea that the three of spades is talking about a problem that's been growing or developing, right? So there is that. In addition to that, or to add more to that, the Six of Hearts can be a card that can represent male energy for me. So this could be a male friend if we go with the idea that it's a general maybe kind of context with a relationship. a male friend that we need to have a conversation with, or that it could be a male relative, which would change the dynamic of this, because hearts can also be about situations that are close to home. And that would be a nice way to bring in the house aspect of the card, because house can represent home, personal life, family members, things of that nature. So it could just be a situation that involves either a male friend, if we go with the general relationship context, a male partner, if we go with the idea that maybe the male partner is somebody that we live with romantically, right? Or a male relative, meaning like someone in our family. Either way, it could just be a matter of needing to have a conversation around something having to do on an emotional level or an emotional nature. There is that. The only other thing I will say about the Six of Hearts is that sometimes in relationships, this card can represent taking responsibility for your own feelings. Like the other person is not entirely responsible for you feeling the way you are feeling. So I'm saying that to say this. If there is a need for an important conversation of a emotional nature or having to do with feelings, then it would be going into the conversation with the idea of not blaming the other person, meaning like, you make me feel this way, or you're making me feel that way, because that's not entirely the truth. The truth of the matter is that all our emotional reactions and responses are a matter of choice. We choose a certain reaction and response in the moment, right? So on some level, we have to take responsibility for how we are choosing to react and respond emotionally, right? So there is that. So I always say this when I kind of give an idea about how to role play through a conversation. It could be a matter of, I feel this way when, or I'm taking ownership of my feelings going into the situation, but it's a matter of taking ownership and not making the other person responsible or putting the onus on them in terms of how you are choosing to feel about a situation, right? So, and that's not in a way to kind of minimize or dismiss that they have some level of participation in that, right? Because some level it takes two people to create a relationship, whether it's working or it's not working, right? Two people participate in that energy. So there is that. The other thing about the Six of Hearts as I'm going on, this is also a knowledge card. So the idea about taking a closer examination at a situation, especially if it's a problem or a challenge, it's with the idea like, I want to gain some more knowledge as a result. And the only way you can do that is to actually take a look at it, to actually examine what it is. But you're doing it because you want to gain some knowledge. I just realized that's a very old meaning of the Six of Hearts. So that is Six of Hearts in house. Now let's take a look at the card in between. Here we have, I knew one of these was going to show up. Okay, so here we have one of the Joker cards in the deck, and I specifically call this one the red Joker because the lettering on the side of the card is red, because the other one is black. So there's a red Joker and a black Joker. So I read them differently. When the red Joker card comes up, this is a card about being at a crossroads, because the Joker, there's two Joker words, and they crisscross each other, with the K being what connects them. But I tend to look at this as being at a crossroads. So usually this card can represent being at a crossroads. It could also be, in light of what I said earlier, this card can be about a new outlook on a situation. So it could just be a matter of we're taking a closer look at the situation and maybe seeing if there's something that can be gained, maybe in terms of knowledge, that can help create a new outlook or get us to see the situation differently. So there is that. But this card can also be about a new direction. So if we're having a challenge, possibly in a relationship scenario, based on the Six of Hearts and house, then this could be on some level we want to have a conversation, we want to move through the problem, we want to heal the problem, going with the idea that hearts represent healing, because we want to take things in a new direction, right? So that's what I see with the red Joker. The only other thing I will add to that is that the red Joker can represent a leap of faith. So it could just be a matter of, if there is about moving things in a new direction, it may require a leap of faith, meaning, and that's just about trust. Now I will go one step further with this, because the red Joker for me can represent spirituality. So this could be for somebody moving things into a new spiritual direction. And with that, then this would be about a leap of faith and having trust in the divine. You know, we kind of talked about that last week with the Spirit card, because I'm being shown that. So it could just be a matter of, and I talked about this idea about spiritual direction last week. So with that in mind, it could be a matter of having a leap of faith, which is really all about having faith and trust in the divine, right? And trust in the divine that if you're moving in a new direction, that each step along that path is going to be provided for you. And you just have to trust that it will show up when you are ready to take the step. It will show up. So now let's take a look at what's on the other side of the line. And starting with that, we have very interesting week. Okay, so now here we have the 4 of diamonds and dog. So I'm going to do the reverse. This time I'm going to go with the symbol first, and then I will touch on the card. But dog is a card that can represent a friend, a partner, or a companion. So it goes back to what I talked about with the 6 of hearts and house. So we have that repeated here, which is why I want to talk about that first. Now, I just talked about faith in the divine, right? Dog is also a symbol that talks about faith and faithfulness, right? So there's that. But dog is also a symbol that can represent loyalty, it can represent help, it could represent support, and it could represent assistance. Now, for the people who are talking about this idea, or going through a situation, I should say, with a friend, a partner, or companion, it could just be a matter of help and assistance with that. It could be a matter of, I need support with that, and that could be support on an emotional level, right? And you could just be saying too, like, I need, one of the things I need from either this male friend, this male family member, I need some support, right? I need some assistance. If we're going to move this situation forward together, I need your help and I need your assistance, right? So there is that to consider. Now, dog is also for me a symbol that can represent a guide. So it could just be a matter of, for the person who's talking about, or resonating, I should say, with this idea about spiritual direction and moving along on your path, whatever that is, then this could just be a matter of working with your spirit guides. Last week I talked about people being mediums and channels, and people who understand that, resonate that. People who are mediums and channels work very closely with their spirit guides, right? So it could just be a matter of working with the greater spirit, but also working with the spiritual guides that have chosen to walk with you on your path. And when I say walk with you on your path, I mean the guides who have chosen to be with you throughout this entire life incarnation. Whether it's angels, spirit guides, and that we all have them, and we all have our spirit team that has chosen or has been assigned to us. So this could be a week where part of the leap of faith, maybe, or having faith and trust in spirit and all things spiritual, is that you are leaning on your spirit guides, in whatever form they are for you, for help and assistance, right? So I'm seeing that with dog. Now, going back to the playing card, the 4 of diamonds is a card that can come up when we are talking about holding on to things, because for me this is all about financial accounts. Usually the 4 of diamonds for me can represent a financial account. I'm not seeing it in that regard. I'm feeling, because it's a financial account is what we save for, and we save for in the future. So it's just making me feel like we're holding on to something. Diamonds can represent energy, so this is a matter of maybe needing help or assistance because there is some sort of energy that we are holding on to. That could be a grudge, that could be, it's making me feel like maybe for some people it's a grudge, because I'm not seeing anything more than that, because maybe holding on to a grudge or holding on to your position in a situation, and that could be where the need for a different outlook or a different perspective could come in, because you're only seeing it from your side, or your side of the coin, or the lens, or the line, right? And so this could just be coming in to say, would you be willing to let go of your position? Would you be willing to let go of, if you're holding on to a grudge, would you be willing to let go of the grudge? You know, that kind of thing. Would you be willing to really let go of the problem? Are you holding on to the problem, which means that you're holding on to the problem, the energy of the problem, so tightly that you're not willing to release it so you can, metaphorically, grasp a solution, right? I'm a big believer that spades show up not just to highlight a problem, but to also allow us, by giving us a heads up of, are we willing to make different decisions? Are we willing to problem solve? And if so, how can we go about that? But I'm feeling like this is the case with the 4 of diamonds. It's about, what are you holding on to, energetically speaking, that might need to be released, because that may be part of the problem. Now, taking a look at our final card, we have, oh, interesting, okay. So here we have the Two of Diamonds and woman at the end of the line. So it's very interesting. So if you're a woman watching this video, the woman card could represent you. If you're a man watching this video, the woman card could represent a woman who is significant to the situation. So it's very interesting. If we go with the idea that the Six of Hearts was talking about a male friend or a male partner, that kind of thing, then on the other side of the line we have the woman. And the interesting thing about it, the woman is not facing all the other cards, right? So it could just be a matter of the situation that she has found herself in. There may be aspects of it that she is ignoring, or that there may be aspects that she's trying to put behind her so she can move forward, going the idea of maybe a new path or new direction, right? A new outlook, right? I'm hearing in my head the Patti LaBelle song, I've Got a New Attitude. So it could just be a matter of a woman in particular may need to have a new attitude, or that if she finds her voice, if she says what she needs to say, that would be maybe the jumping off point for a new attitude for her. So I'm seeing that. If you're a woman and you're not understanding this, then it could also be a woman who's significant to you, if it's not you directly, right? Because I remember I talked about a third party maybe insinuating or inserting themselves into the situation. So it could be the third party may be a woman. So that's just another thought that's coming to me. The Two of Diamonds. Okay, so when the Two of Diamonds comes at the end of the line, it usually can represent some sort of help or assistance being received. We're on the receiving end of that. So it's very interesting because the dog card I talked about, which came right before it, is maybe putting in a request for help or some sort of assistance. For some people in particular, that help or assistance may be of a financial nature, because this for me can represent a financial transaction, money changing hands, that kind of thing. So here's another scenario that's popping to my head in the moment. For some people, there may be a situation in which you are being called upon to assist somebody else financially. The Four of Diamonds in that regard, there's no mistakes of things that I say, is that this can be a financial account, and then with that in mind, somebody may be taking money out of their savings to assist another person in need. So that's another possibility with that. But the Two of Diamonds can also be talking about the energy of a relationship, the energy of a partnership. Now remember, I said earlier that each party in a relationship contributes in terms of energy, and this is what that's saying, right? So there is that to consider. In our relationships this week, especially if they're challenging, we need to ask ourselves, what's the energetic contribution I am putting into, that I'm participating, that I'm bringing into this relationship, right? And take responsibility for that. And the other person should take responsibility for their side of that. Going back to the 6 being a number of responsibility. So it's just a matter of, I think this week, taking a look at relationships generally speaking. For some, it may be having to do with generally speaking relationships. For some, it could be romantic relationships. For some, it could be family relationships. There may be a dynamic that involves money. And so that may be a conversation we need to have, going with the idea that pig can represent abundance, right? So it could just be a matter of working through that. Somebody may actually be dipping into savings to help somebody else out financially who's in need. So I'm seeing that. And on that note, I will go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook. And as I wrap up, I'd like to thank you for tuning in and joining me for this week's Oracle Outlook. And I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day. And I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.